Greetings, lovers of lore! Thank you for joining me for this Amonkhet / Aetherdrift lore. We're going to be talking about Amonkhet after Nicol Bolas. So, we start in the past. Amonkhet had been subverted by Nicol Bolas. He had corrupted the entire plane's religious belief structure, wiping the minds of multiple of Amonkhet's gods and installing himself as an overgod, thus using the entire plane as a staging ground for his domination of the multiverse. The Eternals that were fashioned by the Scarab God proved to be an incredible army that was nigh unstoppable. After Bolas's downfall, the survivors of his tyranny were faced with a new calamity, the Phyrexians. Their invasion had an unintended side effect. It caused everyone on Amonkhet to band together to stand against the Phyrexian menace. Traitor gods stood alongside the honored dead. This alliance, however, only lasted as long as the threat did. Once the Phyrexians had been routed, the Scarab and Locust gods fled into the Broken Lands far from Nactamon. Hazaret was left with the task of rebuilding. This was an incredible challenge, as the Hekma, the barrier that had protected Nactamon, was no more. This meant that the hordes of wandering undead that roamed the desert would be able to enter the city. Without the Hekma to stop them, these undead were drawn to the city like a lodestone. The living tried to hold these hordes back as best they could, but tens of thousands of people had died during the Phyrexian invasion. To compound the problem, nobody stays dead on Amonkhet. The entire plane is cursed. It causes everyone who dies there to rise back up. So inevitably, all of those that were slain by the Phyrexians rose up from the dead, and these new undead refused to join the societal structure of Nactamon, not willing to actually be servants. This led to the honored dead, those people who were mummified and had integrated with society, to realize that if they didn't aid the living, that Amonkhet would soon be populated only by the unliving. And due to the nature of the curse on the plane, the dead would continue to rot away, wandering until their bones turned to dust. And if everybody was turned into an undead, it would mean the end of the entire plane. So the honored dead struck a deal with the living. Free us from servitude, and we will aid in the city's defense. Up until that point, the honored dead had only served in a peaceful capacity. But once they were freed, they played a decisive role in keeping the wandering dead at bay. The loss of the barrier's protection was not a purely negative thing. For the first time in living memory, exploration of all of Amonkhet was possible. Ancient ruins and monuments lay all about, waiting to be discovered. This changed dynamic on Amonkhet ended up birthing new gods. Signs of these new gods gave hope to the beleaguered people of Amonkhet. After the Phyrexian invasion, the Luxa broke free, its waters flooding Nactamon and washing away not only the Phyrexian oil and blood, but also the remnants of the defeated Phyrexians. Rain poured down on the city, and frogs filled the street in pure curiosity. The water reached out into parched farmlands, reinvigorating long empty irrigation canals. The people were in wondrous joy. They held a grand celebration over their bounteous fortune. And at the height of this celebration, suddenly Sabsunan materialized before the stunned assembly. Sabsunan is a frog-headed god, the symbol of Amonkhet's renewal. And that's not the only new god that was birthed. Ketramos was the second of the new gods. He rose fully formed from the waters of the Luxa. He is the god of hope, of the fierce, unbreakable dawn. He was birthed from the implacable will of the living to survive, and he represents the solidarity of the living and the dead, and also the waiting future. Ketramos has the head of a lion and wields a bow that evokes memories of the fallen god Oketra. The people of Amonkhet have embraced these new gods with a fervor, raising temples to their new saviors, and the people have unswerving love and loyalty towards these gods because they know they were never part of Bolas's plans and have not felt Bolas's corrupting influence. Hazaret, for her part, has actually departed Nactamon, entrusting its care to these new gods, while she roams the Broken Lands hunting the traitor gods. Others have ventured out into the Broken Lands in search of ancestors, ruins, and answers. But lurking out in the depthless sands are demigods and long-dead kings, and they stir, ready to reclaim ancient cities long buried. The only thing stopping them from overrunning the living is that they're too arrogant to work together. These ancient monarchs believe only the gods are above them, and specifically only the gods that have fled out into the desert. They don't believe in these new pretender gods or the gods that were subverted by Bolas. So they worship only the scarab and only the locust gods. The worship of these undead is actually what sustains the scarab and locust gods now that they've lost the worship of the everyday people. And one day, all of these fractious forces will be welded together by the gods and march upon Nactamon and its pretender gods. Some of these ancient monarchs have been swayed to the side of the living, impressed by the new societal structure that takes the best of what the living and dead have to offer. The future of Amonkhet looks bright, but they have some serious challenges to overcome. And that ends this installment of Magic the Gathering lore. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the transition from Nicol Bolas into the new world of Amonkhet. I am a huge fan of the way this has all played out because there is so much more to discover from a story perspective. What lies out in all those undiscovered areas? For most of its history, we've only known Nactamon as the main city, and everything else has been shrouded in mystery. So going forwards, I am very curious to determine what else Amonkhet has for us. Thanks for stopping by and listening to some lore. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members for supporting this channel. Go enjoy some more stories while you're here, because at the end of the day, lore is life.